if you got a dollar, won't just lousy down. Know that I got rhythm that could suit your budget fine. You can take or leave me, but you ain't got much time, 'cause I just keep on rolling down the line.
This is Patrick, Trusty THMercantile. I think I got carried away. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Trusty THMercantile is a vintage reseller. I have a presence on Etsy under THMercantile, short for Trusty THMercantile. I specialize in glass, porcelain, and decorative objects. I have a personal collection, and that continues to grow. And like many people, I have been under a lockdown and unable to go and source things for myself. Also means I can't source for resale, but you know, I really care about myself first. When I started exploring Etsy, Instagram, Mercari, some of the traditional online sources, since that was the only option I had a bad experience. Literally the first shipment that I ordered to add to a new collection that I was working on ended up being shipped to me in a bubble mailer. It was a porcelain mug, and you can get the highlights of that in the first video that I posted, but I keep the memory of it in the intro to this video. So although it was a little bit of a reenactment, it wasn't much of an exaggeration. I did receive a porcelain mug in a bubble mailer. So I started doing these videos kind of as a documentary of sorts, which I could use and benefit from as a reseller, because almost everything I ship is breakable. And trust me, I have had items break. I've been recording these videos now for a couple of weeks, and I've already had something break in the middle of recording the videos. So trust me, I know irony. But it's that porcelain mug in a bubble mailer that I keep coming back to as a disturbing feature. And although it wasn't intended, because I did start buying a lot online, I started receiving shipments in a variety of packaging. And this is what I have received in bubble mailers. Every item on this table is breakable. So sit back and enjoy, see what happens as I open all these packages, see what survives. And if you like what you're seeing, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It really does make a difference, makes me feel good about myself. Enjoy the video. So I don't know the best way to do this, so I'm really just going to open these in random order. This first one is an ashtray. It's packaged in a regular priority mail bubble mailer. It does not appear to be a flat rate. It was shipped simply priority mail. Actually, interestingly enough, if you look very closely underneath the label, this was a flat rate bubble mailer, but it was not sent. I'd have to check. It was sent for $8.40. Maybe that is the flat rate, but I find it interesting they actually covered up the word flat rate. So I'm still exploring what happens with different priority mail packaging, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. So regardless, the package itself appears to be in decent shape. It's been written on, but for the most part, it's a bag. At least it's easy to open. Okay, so there's hope. So this is what was packaged inside. It's another piece of bubble wrap inside the bubble wrap of the envelope, and the envelope was in good shape. These weren't already crushed. And it is very heavily covered in packing tape. So let me open this up. We have a survivor. This happened to be a Lillian porcelain ashtray. I was trying to build a collection of the different back stamps. This one happens to be a more modern version of this, going well into the 90s. But I thought it was an interesting symbol. It's for a hotel. I did the research when I bought it. The seller did not know what the hotel was, but I figured it out and wanted a variety of hotels, so I did pick this one up. It is in good shape and was packaged moderately well. There's no additional information, no messages, nothing in the padding, but I guess what's important is it did survive. Now, interesting to note as well is this item was sold with shipping separate. I was charged $8.85 for shipping. While it's fairly rare, this seller is actually using retail, and so I paid $8.85. They got charged $8.40. If they had used an online, shipping software like Pirate Ship or many others that are out there, they probably could have saved themselves a little bit of money. I would have still paid $8.85, but they would have made a little bit more because the purchase of this piece by itself did not make them much money at all. So this piece I paid $5 for, plus the $8.85 in shipping. So they made the $5, basically less whatever they cost them to acquire this. But I don't consider it unethical to have that cover your time and materials. You know, there's probably 10-20 cents worth of bubble wrap in here, plus the time to take it to the post office, etc. I see no issue if you charge me retail, but you get a little bit of a discount because you're doing the legwork. So he missed that opportunity, he or she missed that opportunity, but the piece survived. I've got another padded mailer. This one is a little bit different because it appears to have been purchased retail, and it's not a post office, it's not eBay. This is the only poly mailer I received from international. This was shipped to me from Canada from an Etsy purchase. This one is a poly mailer, but this is one that has a box inside. So let's get it cut open and see how the box survived. So bag was in good condition. Box appears to be in pretty good condition. It is a thinner box that may or may not have been able to survive shipping on its own. So maybe including it in the little poly mailer was a good idea. They did use packing tape to seal it up, but luckily only on that flap, so it was easy to come off. Okay, interesting. So this one actually has a little foam cutout. Little piece on the top. I don't know if the box came with that or if the buyer or the seller did that. I'm gonna guess the seller did it because it's not exactly a perfect fit, and I'm not criticizing at all, but I'm using the fact that it's not a perfect fit to guess that this must have been made to order this foam to fit this box, to fit this piece, because the size of the cutout in the middle is brilliant. So it looked like they cut that out. I'm a little confused. I'll come to this adorable little note in a second. I'm a little confused. This doesn't appear to match that. So this is from something else. When I first saw it, I thought they cut the foam out and then this was the piece that they cut out to go back into it. But that's not the case because this is a different kind of black than this. And this is black throughout, where this has a white core, it's just black on the outside. So this appears to be a marriage that this came from another piece, but it worked perfectly because it provided that extra support in the well of the ashtray for some support on the top of a pretty decent grade box. So that's nice. And then, yeah, I'm gonna have to figure this one out. It's an oval shape for a not oval shaped ashtray. So all right, this might be purchased in this shape. It's very evenly cut and it's very even at the bottom. You can't really see that, but it's not like I was thinking somebody took an X-Acto knife and cut a custom shape. I don't think you'd be able to get to this level of detail because it looks like this you look really closely, that back piece is a separate piece of foam that was glued onto this top piece of foam, so that you cut the hole all the way through this piece and then put this piece of the backer. I can't imagine anyone doing that for a $15, no, I'm sorry, a $10 purchase. I paid $10.50 plus $7.16 shipping. So if you do, okay, everyone needs to go buy from this woman. But even if she didn't, this is a lot of attention to detail for, again, a very inexpensive purchase. So whatever the case, whether these were a marriage or this was designed to go that way, not sure. It's a brilliant way of shipping this that doesn't, I mean, there's some cost to this material, but it's a very economical way. I can reuse this. I sell smalls all the time, so I'll be able to use this and push this on. So the whole idea of vintage, you know, reduce, reuse, and if you have to, then recycle. This can keep getting reused because it's just really good material. The bubble wrap is fantastic, but as you've seen, when you use a lot of packing tape, it gets destroyed and it's harder to reuse it later. This is something that can absolutely be reused. So, okay, I'm sorry why I completely obsess over this, but I'm exceptionally impressed. So anyway, and the box has been reused because there's a little sticky residue on here. Again, not a criticism, but it's, you know, she didn't buy this specifically for this purpose. Somehow she figured out that this was a perfect purchase, a perfect piece for this purchase. So fantastic job. It's a great piece. It has, it's an Innsbruck. And the reason I bought this one was, now that I look at it closely, and the reason I bought this one was almost entirely for its back stamp. So that is the oldest generation. It's the same logo that started in 1963 in green. When it's in brown, it means it's from when the company was founded in 1959. And it's not technically when the company was founded. They existed as Wilhelmsburg pottery before that. But Lillian Porcelain started in 1959, and that is their date stamp. If you watched one of my earlier videos, and actually the intro to this video that parodies the broken bag or broken porcelain in a bag, that had been a piece of brown back stamp, and I didn't have one in my collection. I can't say that anymore because now I do. So interestingly, this does not appear to be a bubble mailer. This is a simple manila envelope. I don't feel any padding along the edges. It appears to be, it's got the little clasp on the back. It appears to be something from Office Depot just to ship papers in. Not any protection in here at all. So we shall see how this survives. Interestingly as well, because it's lightweight, not a surprise, it did ship first class mail, but that means this is not insured. So if there are any issues, there will be issues because he or she will not have insurance for this. So let's see what it looks like. All right, when I opened it, I actually got to a bubble item, bubble mailer, and I think I know what this is. Oh, no I don't. It is an eBay bubble mailer. Now, I'm not used to working with eBay, so I don't know, you know, pros, cons, etc. But I do find it interesting that she put it in a bag and then put the bag in a bag. So we've got a bag in a bag, and then whatever's inside this bag. It maybe provided a little bit of extra protection, but I can't imagine much. I mean, it's just paper. I mean, so there's not a lot of protection. This is stretching the confines a little bit of the bag, not horribly so, but this is paper. It doesn't stretch at all. It's not even Tyvek. So had this been somehow caught, this would have been shot out of the edge of the paper, and this is not labeled in any way. So had this been separated from this bag, this would have just been lost for eternity. So not saying this was a bad idea, but it might have been a good idea to also put some sort of a tracking information or just even a return address or something on the inner one just to continue the cycle had this burst. If the outer bag were Tyvek or some sort of material that was a little bit stronger, that would probably be less necessary. But shipping anything three-dimensional and something designed for a two-dimensional shipment, I think is running a risk. But so far, it did survive, so, you know, that's kind of covering the what-ifs. Let's open this. Sorry, I needed to pause there for a second because I literally didn't know what just happened. So I opened the bag and out came a Betty Crocker plastic container. All right, A for ingenuity. I will give you that. So it has that, and then also inside, which would have helped, again, had the packaging been broken apart, is the invoice with both my address and the seller's address on there. So it would have had, the post office would have had to cut this open, but at least there was something inside that owned it up. All right, and so then we have this. Now this is Scotch taped. So I've got I'm a fan already. It's not ridiculously package taped. It was easy to get into the padded mailer, and it's easy to get into this. Opens it up. Looks like it's all packaged into one piece. A very nice nest of padding there to cover up what I purchased, also covered by an individual piece of tissue paper. And I've got my Hotel France individual creamer. So this one has the bottom stamp. I remember which one this was. So this is the second, well, no, so actually this is the third generation. It also has the distributor name across it, so it's harder to see. But the third generation takes the original stamp that has the word Austria in the middle of the circle and puts a dot underneath it. So this is fairly early, going into the late 60s. So just a really sweet, diminutive creamer. This isn't, I mean, I guess technically I could say this is a haul video as well, but this is staying in my collection, my permanent collection. So we have a Survivor. And I think it's worth mentioning that this one was purchased with shipping included, and with shipping included, I only paid $10. So there was not a lot of profit margin for the shipper to make any money on this. It was shipped first class mail, so you know it only weighed 8 ounces. So you know, but this still, it'd probably be $3 or $4 depending on whether she used a software or paid retail. Materials, you know, there's some cost into the materials, but not a lot of profit margin. But although it started not promisingly based on this, she put a lot of care into how it was packaged, and the end result is a very safely delivered piece. So good job. So this is shipped to me in an eBay bubble mailer, fairly nicely and tightly packaged inside. There is just the tape of the bubble mailer sealing it shut, and then the label has been taped onto it, but not really providing any extra protection. So basically it's all the bubble mailer providing the protection. So inside is another piece completely bubble wrapped within the bubble mailer, so a really nice level of protection in there. Packing slip with the Enjoy on it. Kind of interesting script, I give credit for that as well. With a little bit of a message from the eBay system. So this looks like there's just one piece of packing tape, so still not a fan of packing tape, but at least it's one piece that goes in one direction, so it's going to be easy to take off. Inside is another piece, and also worth noting, so they're using the eBay packing tape, so even on the clear bubble wrap, it was easy to see, so it was easy to remove. Inside the bubble wrap is a baggie with the product in it. Inside the baggie is the product, also with bubble wrap. And what they did nicely on this one, whether by accident or intentionally, when they had this big piece of bubble wrap to wrap over, they wrapped it into the middle so that it provided a little bit of resistance if anything were to smash into it from the top. There's a little bit of padding because you figure this is an ashtray, the lips kind of come up, so if you put something that kind of gives it that extra level of protection, it has to smash through the packaging before it gets to the edges. So again, I can't tell if that was on purpose, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that it was, and it was a really good thought, because that level needs extra protection where the back tends to be a little bit sturdier. It still needs protection, but the extra can go on that side. And we've got the Hotel Steinhoff, and this is, it's another ashtray. I do not smoke. I'm collecting these primarily for their back stamps. And this again is a 3rd generation back stamp. It has the Austria logo or Austria word in the middle of the circle and then the dot at the bottom. So that's the 3rd generation, which puts this into the late 60s up to 1969. This is a really nice piece, and happy to have it in my collection, and it was packaged very nicely. Worth noting, this ashtray was purchased at a slightly higher list price, but then the shipping was a lower cost. So I paid $15 for the ashtray, but then only $3.31 for the shipping. Now it was shipped first class, so it's entirely possible $3.31 may be about what they paid to ship it. First class is not as dependent upon the regions, so it's not as big of a deal if it was shipped for a longer distance. But so they made a little bit more of their money in the list price. And because it's an older back stamp, I was perfectly happy to pay it. And I always like it when, you know, things kind of balance themselves out. But all in, I paid $18.31 for this. And it was packaged nicely and commensurate to what I paid to get the product. So in this package, we have it arriving in another paper Nilla envelope, but this one I can tell already from the outside, this is a padded envelope. Now it is not tear proof, so I'd be interested to know cost-wise how much something like this costs compared to a Tyvek or a plastic bubble wrap that would serve the same purpose. But at least it is giving a little bit of extra protection. Just if this were to get caught or snagged, this will probably rip more easily and possibly tear itself open compared to something that is a Tyvek or a plastic material. But since I'm already partially here, let's finish. So inside is a piece of, is the piece wrapped in bubble wrap. It has a nice thank you sticker. I'm covering the name of the person that sent it until I open this up and make sure it survived. Because if you haven't watched any of the other videos, this is not a channel to shame anybody. My intention is I hope everyone does a super good job and I can give everyone credit for how good of a job they do packing. If you have watched my channel, you will know that that doesn't always happen. So I don't want to share names until I know it's good, but this is a good start. There's a lot of layers of bubble wrap in this, and it had that extra layer bubble wrap through the packaging itself. So that's a good start. And it's just a nice touch to have that little custom thank you sticker with both the name of the seller and the platform. And that is actually surprisingly relevant, something that I would not have even had considered. But because I've been purchasing across multiple platforms, including Instagram, when I started planning some of these videos, I literally took a half an hour just trying to match up the tracking numbers from the packages that I received to the packages sitting in front of me. And in some cases, I don't remember where I got something. So I was doing some of the research. If I am impressed by this individual, it will be nice to know that this is the platform this individual is on. So this one happened to come from eBay. So a very nice touch, putting that in there. Again, considering all the items that I'm purchasing are not high, they are not high value items. Okay, now I was really positive about that, but I just ripped that label in half. So it's half as usable as it was, but again, the thought counts. But there is some packing tape here I gotta cut through. Just a little though. So one nice big piece on the outside to then have the smaller piece on the inside, also packing taped. This one has been folded in such a way that I kind of undid it, but it was thicker in the well of the ashtray, so that you had as I've mentioned before, you end up having a little bit more protection on the top, so if something were to happen to it, you have some protection on the lip of that ashtray so the lip doesn't chip or snap off. So again, whether that's intentional or by accident, great that they did that. This was a fun one for me to find because first, I find the ashtray, look, cover the importance. Ashtray is in perfect condition. It was packaged extremely well, good condition. This was a fun one though because the graphics are kind of fun. It's SOS Kinderhof, based on the image as well as some of the information supported in the listing. This appears to be a children's camp. I need to do some more research on it myself, but this isn't a haul video. This is just for the packing. But I did like this one and I've paid up for it because I find it hilarious that a kid's camp is going to have an ashtray as its as its souvenir piece. So anyway, that's how my mind works. I think it's funny. But the other reason I paid up, one, because I think it's a unique location, but I also wanted that back stamp. That is the second generation back stamp. So the first generation is this exact same logo in brown. So if you ever see the brown logo, it's not necessarily making it that much more valuable, but it is the oldest. The brand was founded in 1959. So you're really at the heart, toward the tail end of the mid-century movement. And so you get these earlier marks. Sometimes the designs that you see are very interesting. So this one is the generation just after the brown. So this started in 1963 and went through the mid 60s. And looking at that logo, you can kind of see the 60s. So I say I paid up for it, but I still only paid $15.95. And then for that $15.95, it included shipping. So this one, again, it was shipped first class mail, only weighed 6 ounces. So you're probably only talking $3 to $4. So, they still got a nice little $10 profit, hopefully made it, depending on what they paid for it. But there was a little bit of money there that hopefully justified their trip and justified the time and the expenses of putting this effort into packing what to a lot of people would consider a really small potatoes type of purchase. So good job. So I include this one in the analysis because it is still a bag, but I can tell it's a box. So I think there's an interesting possible method to madness where I can tell already this box is not a particularly sturdy box. Putting it in a bag maybe is giving it a little bit more protection. This is not a flat rate bag, so I've heard or seen a little bit more of it where you'll take something protected in a box and then put it into a flat rate mailer because it could end up being cheaper. Because even though you have something very small, if it weighs a lot, the weight cost to ship something across country could be a lot higher than just something that fits into a flat rate mailer. This was sent first class mail, so that's not particularly a benefit to that. There's a cost to these mailers, not exceptional, but there is a cost to these mailers because this one is just white. It's not something from the post office. They purchased this. So I'm gonna go ahead and include this in the review simply because it's not necessarily a bad thing to combine bags and boxes. This is just a poly bag with no padding on the bag itself. But let me get it open. So as I said, the bag has really no support. Like this is never gonna protect anything going through the mail that's breakable. So your entire protection is based on this box. And it is worth noting that it was sent first class, so there's no automatic insurance. There's potential to purchase insurance, and I don't see that happened. But if you ship priority mail, insurance is included. So these are all things you have to weigh out, both as you as a buyer paying for freight and as a shipper making decisions how to ship. This is inexpensive enough that should it get broken, I'm sure we would be able to work out some sort of level of remuneration. But if it suddenly gets more valuable, it's something to take into consideration. So this is just a little flip top box, kind of like a box you get your checks in, although it's a little bit shorter than that. Kind of a thin cardboard, definitely not a shipping material, or at least not a protective shipping material. Held in place by a piece of Scotch tape, which I can break with my nail. Pop that open. The box was not actually closed properly. This should have actually flipped over and closed on the sides that would give you 3 levels of cardboard, the outer, the inner, and then the 2 tongues that are sticking in there. Again, that's not going to provide much protection. It's all going to be based on here, but when you have such little protection to offer, you might as well take what you can get, and being able to close this the way it was designed would have helped a little bit. And so then you've got the product packed inside. Now this one is packed with, it looks like a single sheet of bubble wrap using Scotch tape, bless your little heart, so it's not going to be difficult to open. But the minute I take off the tape to open this up, you can tell there's almost no protection on this base. So again, if you start doing the physics of all of this, this is how it's packaged. This 3/4 of the rim is protected only by a single layer of bubbles, which the bubbles are spaced apart. So you've got some areas without any protection in a box that has almost no thickness to it, in a bag that has literally almost no thickness to it. So this probably would have been justified to ship, to maybe throw another wrap around it, or to throw something into the bottom of the box to give a little bit of extra padding. It seems to have survived, but just again, as a note, thinking this was packaged decently, but what's it going to get exposed to as it gets shipped? And this would have concerned me as a packer. I would have probably, even if I was using all these same materials, I would have at least put something else in here, or something else even just on the back of this, just to give that extra protection. And another ashtray. Admittedly, this one I shouldn't have purchased because I have another Hotel Imperial ashtray already, but I had purchased it because I wanted the older stamp, and then I found that older stamp on a different ashtray. So this will probably actually end up going up for sale. I probably at best will make my money back, but this one I purchased probably too quickly because of the way it was priced. And this is all about buyer psychology. This was listed at 99 cents plus freight. Wow, $1? Sure. Then the freight kicked in. So I was charged $7.29 for freight. This was shipped first class mail, no additional insurance. So all in, there's probably $3, maybe $4 worth of expense in the shipping. So the balance of the $8.28 that they make is what they pocket. So they're basically making $5 off of this. So while I'm maybe being critical of using a thin box and not a lot of material, there is a little bit of caveat emptor, and you get what you pay for. If this had arrived damaged, the risk again to both of us would have been $8 if he wanted to stiff me or if he had to refund me, whatever the case may be. It was worth the risk for me. So that all in, I'm at $8.25 or $8.28. That if I do want to resell it, again, I won't make a lot of money, but as we've seen with some of the other ones that I purchased, they're going to sell in the $10 to $15 range, depending on what happens with the freight. So I'm no worse off, and it survived, so that's a good thing. This next one is actually one I'm excited to open because when it arrived, admittedly, I was a little bit surprised because when I cross-referenced the tracking number to see what it was, because at no point am I exaggerating, I was getting 2 to 3 shipments a day for about a week or two for a number of different reasons. And this was one of many that just went into the pile because a lot of the packages, or any package that came in from eBay, was being quarantined in the garage for a couple of days before I even touched it. And so when I started going through them, I had these stacks. And so I was trying to cross-reference the tracking number. And when it cross-referenced, it came across that this was the vase that I had ordered. I'm like, all right, what kind of vase did I buy? Or was it smashed so much already that it looks like a plate? So I re-looked at the listing, paid to look at the listing. The seller did exactly the right thing right at the top of the listing. First of all, it says a mini vase, and then it gave the measurements that it's only 2 inches tall. So surprise to me. I don't care because I was picking it up because it was something I didn't already own. It was a back stamp and a piece that I didn't have already. So I wanted to add it to my collection. It's just not going to take up nearly as much space as I thought it would. So this is a Tyvek or plastic bubble mailer. It's got the bubble wrap to it, but it also helps that it won't be torn as easy in shipping. where I ripped it open, got another bubble mailer inside, so you've got a kind of a double layer of bubble wrap, and then this one has been folded over to fit in. So then in the double wrap bubble wrap is the product wrapped in just a tissue paper, but that's okay because it had, you know, a decent amount of protection. Now this is a case where, if you consider how this was packaged inside, it seems like there's a lot of packing here, but this was folded over and then taped shut. So on this side, you had 1, 2, 3 layers of bubble wrap protecting the one side of the vase, but on the other side, you only had the one side wall of the bag. All things to keep in mind that, you know, yes, there's a lot of bubble wrap on the surface area, but it's not all equally distributed and not all protecting the product at the same way. So if this were going to get damaged, most likely it's going to get damaged because this side didn't have as much protection. Now, it still had the bubble mailer here, so there were still 2 walls of protection of bubbles, but that side had 2 walls and now the other side now had 4. So again, it's just things to consider. Even little things like when you then put the product in here, and I wasn't paying attention when I pulled it out, so maybe they did do that, is obviously there's going to be a certain part, depending on how you wrap it, that will have more padding. Put the side with more padding against the bag side that's going to have less protection. So you're kind of trying to counterbalance the fact that all sides are getting as much protection as possible. So this is the same thing. It seemed like it was wrapped primarily in one direction and then closed up. So this side is getting a lot of protection. This side does not have as much, but it's a very small piece. And you can tell the way it was wrapped was this square piece. The piece was put inside of it. It was closed up around it and then closed. So not a problem because that closes quite a bit. But then through shipping, it had gotten flattened out and a lot of it had moved. So that would be where I don't like packing tape, but that can be where taping the wrapping into place can be beneficial, because if you're putting the protection in a specific area, say to wrap around a handle, to, you know, provide extra padding because of the way it's going to go into a bag, you want it to stay where you're putting it. You're putting that thought into it. You want to make sure you earn that. So tape it into place and then go ahead and put it in. But this was there's a lot of paper here, so this was giving it a lot of protection. And when you pull it out, you get this tiny little cup, which now that I see it, I want to say is an egg cup. Be right back. Egg cup. It's actually a very cute egg cup. So this one again was purchased because I didn't have it. It is a Klagenfurt, it's a souvenir piece from that castle in Germany. It has an interesting date stamp. It's not getting into the oldest ones, but if you can tell, you can see there's that little fleur-de-lis in there. If you look really closely, the bottom of the fleur-de-lis only has 2 feet. Their original logo had 3. So what they did at one point, they changed the glaze, and they needed to change to make an indication where they stopped doing the one glaze and started doing the other. That's when a lot of companies, that's when they change their stamps, is because something changed, whether it's the year or the production process. So they had all these stamps that had that back stamp or that stamp image, and they wanted an inexpensive way to make the change. So they literally just took a knife and cut the middle foot off of the fleur-de-lis and made this one. So I just think that's a fun story for that stamp, but it means this is going much later. I'm typically don't want to collect this back stamp as much, but again, it was an image that I didn't know. I did think it was larger, but that's also kind of a sign of quality in my opinion, because if you can take a picture of something and not tell by the photograph that it's a miniature, it's a well done piece. If you think about a lot of miniatures you've seen, when you put them in a picture it's so obvious that you may not know what's wrong, but something's wrong because the proportions are off, and it's just because it's done in miniature. This one was done really nicely and was packaged very well. So this was another case where at the time it was purchased, shipping was quote unquote free. As I like to remind my daughter all the time, nothing in life is free, somebody's paying for it. So for this piece, it was unique enough that I hadn't seen it before. I wanted to have it, and I hadn't been focusing on that back stamp, but I didn't have much in that back stamp. So it was just gonna be a fun one to add. The fact it's smaller than I thought, you know, to a certain extent, lesson learned, but I don't really care. It's still a fun piece to have, and I'm glad to have it. And it was a total of $15, including shipping. So there couldn't be any more than $5 for having shipped this. So hopefully a decent amount of profit margin and enough money to justify some of the expense of the materials that were used to package the product. So much to my surprise, everything survived. I'll be honest, I really had some low hopes there. I knew most of what was in there, particularly the ashtrays, were far less susceptible to being damaged en route. So I wasn't particularly concerned necessarily they'd be broken, but admittedly the creamer and the vase, which was already a mystery to me because it was so small, were far more susceptible, and they survived absolutely great. I'm going to go ahead and list everyone that I purchased from in the show notes, so you can take a look at them, and you can basically know if there's anything that they're offering that you're interested in. It'll be shipped to you with adequate protection and with good customer care, and you will get the product most likely undamaged. But I wanted to take this time and in the video itself do a live shout out to the one I'm impressed with the most. And that was the oldest piece in the batch, the one that came from Canada. So a shout out goes to Nina Vintage Gems. She's an Etsy seller, so make sure you're looking for her on Etsy. Nina Vintage Gems is all one word according to the post in her Etsy store. There's some reference in there about portion of proceeds, portion of all sales being donated to a charity, so bonus there. But the fact that for what is a notably inexpensive, non-special, it's special to me because this is the one with the oldest back stamp, but I don't think Nina knew that, nor did she necessarily need to know that she took a piece that she did not make a lot of money on and put a lot of emphasis and a lot of effort into making sure it got packaged well. It was able to ship across international borders. It took a little while to get here, but that's not her fault. She did a great job, and she definitely should get some credit that of the pieces that were shipped to me in the poly mailers, she used the materials that she had available to her, I think, the most effectively to still have an inexpensive shipping experience, and made me a very happy customer. So thanks again for joining me. If you made it this far and you're not a subscriber to my channel, I'd really appreciate it if you'd pop over there and go ahead and hit subscribe. If you do hit the little bell notification, you'll find out every time I go live or anytime I post a new video. If you haven't liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't commented, go ahead and share with me what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, experiences you may have had, good and bad. We are here to learn together. Had any of these materials not survived, I would not be listing, or I would not be naming the shops. Again, this is not a video. This is not that kind of a channel. I want this to be educational. I want people to benefit from this. And hopefully, as you worked through all those different bags, a lot of them were very similar, but hopefully you were able to pick up a couple pieces that if you're a reseller, you might be able to use. And if you're a buyer, you can appreciate. So that when you see things like, well, that shipping seems kind of expensive, or, ooh, it's got free shipping, that you'll take those things into consideration and recognize if somebody's suggesting you purchase insurance, there might be a reason for it. You might want to consider taking it. Knowing what you're getting, knowing what you're paying for, is always a good thing. So thanks for spending some time with me and putting your trust in Trusty Huckster. Bye-bye.
Well, show me a sign if you're wishing me to stay. Otherwise, I say goodbye and finish out the day. And that sunrise in the morning and you got nothing to say. Oh, that's when I'll be headed on my way.